Hello and welcome to World News here on TVP World with me, Ashim Kumar. At least 2 people were killed and 7 injured in Russian airstrikes on Kyiv in the early hours of Sunday morning. Ukraine's state emergency services report that a drone attack sparked a fire in an apartment building, forcing dozens of residents to evacuate. Debris from drones caused fires and property damage throughout the city. A fire broke out in a forest area of the Desnyansky district, and several apartment buildings in various parts of the city were damaged. Emergency services have been dispatched to the attack sites, and the full extent of the attack will be known when their operations conclude. A meeting between the Ukrainian and American delegations in Saudi Arabia will take place today, a day earlier than planned. In a post on social media platform X, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky revealed that he had met with members of his military cabinet to prepare for the talks in Riyadh.
I held a meeting of the military cabinet in Kharkiv. We discussed the situation at the front and the developments in main directions: Zaporizhia, Donetsk, Kharkiv, Sumy, as well as the course of the operation in the Kursk region. We also prepared for the meeting between the Ukrainian and American delegations that will take place tomorrow in Saudi Arabia.
Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk visited Poland's eastern border on Saturday, calling on Europe to treat the Polish-Belarusian frontier as a shared responsibility. Poland is battling what it describes as a hybrid operation by Belarus, which is using migrants from the Middle East and Africa to destabilize the region.
Poland's border guard is seeing a sharp rise in the number of migrants trying to force their way into Poland.
In 2025, we recorded more than 2,200 attempts to illegally cross the Polish-Belarusian border.
Top Polish officials, including the Prime Minister, Defense and Interior Ministers, visited soldiers and border guards stationed near Belarus on Saturday.
Today I received a report confirming at least the organizational and political patronage of President Lukashenko's administration. We know of Russian involvement in the operation.
Warsaw says it has reached a 98% effectiveness in stopping illegal migrants from crossing.
There are around 5,000 soldiers at the border, 1,000 soldiers in reserve ready at all times, and 17,000 soldiers deployed for this operation. This is one of the largest operations in Polish history.
To eliminate all crossings, the Polish parliament had passed a bill allowing a temporary suspension of asylum rights. It was approved with the support of the ruling coalition and much of the opposition. The bill awaits signing by President Duda. Under the new law, those who cross from Belarus could be denied the right to apply for international protection. Although there seems to be a consensus when it comes to the need to protect the border, the ruling coalition and the right-wing opposition have clashed over how to approach the issue, while Tusk wants more EU support.
We are mobilizing Europe to treat this border as a shared responsibility.
Last week, MEPs of the Conservative Law and Justice Party voted against a resolution that included labeling the East Shield as a key EU border protection project.
If they give away control over defense to Brussels, or rather Berlin, then EU oligarchs will say it's not possible to build military bases east of the Vistula River. Why? Because they'll say it will provoke Russia.
The East Shield foresees the construction of physical barriers along Poland's eastern border, aimed at slowing down a possible invasion from the east. The EU will help Poland finance the investment. For TVP World, Marek Steele.
Top Hamas political leader Salah al-Bardaweel has been killed in an Israeli airstrike on Gaza's city of Khan Younis. According to local sources, the attack also killed not only al-Bardaweel but also his wife, both of whom were praying at the time of the attack. The Gaza Strip saw a resumption of Israeli hostilities on Tuesday as Israel, blaming Hamas's refusal to release Israeli captives, launched a major strike on the region. This broke a nearly 2-month ceasefire deal brokered by Qatar, Egypt and the US. As yet, nearly 50,000 Palestinians have been killed in Gaza since the outbreak of the war in early October 2023. Protesters gathered on Saturday at the court where Istanbul Mayor Ekrem İmamoğlu, the main opposition leader, and other detainees are being tried on terrorism charges in what critics call a political move ahead of upcoming elections.
It was the third day and night of protest and defiance, as tensions soared across Turkey from Izmir to Ankara to Istanbul. Protesters clashed violently with police. More than 340 arrests were made on Friday alone as authorities unleashed water cannons, pepper spray and rubber bullets. All marking one of the largest displays of civil defiance the country has seen in years. People are angry at the detaining of popular mayor Ekrem İmamoğlu, who has emerged as the de facto leader of Turkey's opposition.
Recently, he's come out and said that he was going to run against President Erdogan in the upcoming elections. The elections are still a couple of years away, but he has put his name out there. He has put his name down, and the current currency in Turkey is on the street is that he is going to be one of the future leaders of Turkey.
Ekrem İmamoğlu was set to become the CHP opposition's presidential candidate. This move by the authorities to detain him on charges of terrorism has deeply divided the nation, with experts noting that two starkly contrasting narratives are now unfolding.
One of them are coming from the government, from the ruling party. They are saying it's something coming from corruption, accusations of Ekrem İmamoğlu. So it's something related with with the court. It's not something related with the authority, from Erdogan or from his party. The other narrative we know that coming from the opposition, they are saying this is a politically action against Ekrem İmamoğlu, something undemocratic.
The detention of İmamoğlu, Istanbul's two-term mayor, marks the culmination of a months-long legal crackdown on opposition figures, with critics claiming it's a calculated effort to weaken their chances in the upcoming elections. Yet İmamoğlu is defiant, calling on his supporters to gather and nominate him on Sunday.
Tomorrow, Sunday, March 23rd, all Republican People's Party members will vote for me as their presidential candidate. I invite all my fellow party members to the ballot box in full.
The past days have seen protests in several cities, with many peaceful demonstrations turning into tense clashes with police. Turkey's president is unmoved and has harsh words for the opposition and those on the streets.
You cannot get anywhere anymore in this country by following marginals to attack police, threatening our judges and prosecutors who are doing their duty, by pressing courts, by challenging democracy and the national will, and using illegal, unethical and anti-democratic methods. Turkey was not a country that was found on the streets and will not submit to street terrorism.
The streets, however, are increasingly seeing a surge of demonstrators, angry at how Erdogan's government is dealing with the opposition. Despite the thousands showing their dismay, some experts believe things could still escalate.
And the regime is more autocratic than illiberal. So I think we may be seeing scenes where there's a greater crackdown over the next week or so.
At the moment, Istanbul seems as a barometer for a nation teetering on the edge. With recent arrests and clashes continuing, the situation shows no signs of easing, and the days ahead may bring even more unrest. The city, and indeed the country, remains on high alert. Sasha Farbach, TVP World.
US President Donald Trump is considering lifting sanctions on Turkey and selling the F-35 multi-role aircraft to the country. If Ankara agrees to disable its Russian-made S-400 air defence systems, according to Fox News. After a conversation with Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan, Donald Trump reportedly said he's open to reversing Ankara's exclusion from the F-35 program if Turkey dismantles or relocates the S-400 systems to a US-controlled base. Such a move would mark a shift in US-Turkish relations, strained since Turkey purchased the Russian defense systems in 2019. That deal led to sanctions and Turkey's removal from the F-35 initiative. Washington fears the stealth technology in the F-35 could be compromised and passed to the Kremlin. Serbia is on edge as anti-government protests intensify against President Aleksandar Vučić. The unrest was sparked by the tragic collapse of the Novi Sad railway station canopy, which killed 16 people and was blamed on government corruption. Now, inflammatory comments from Deputy Prime Minister Alexander Vulin praising Russian intelligence have further fueled tensions.
Alexander Vulin, the Deputy Prime Minister of Serbia, has made no secret of who his friends are. Now he has taken to public praises too.
I am very grateful to the Russian special services, which always support us in our fight against color revolutions, primarily with information.
These inflammatory comments come amidst the ongoing anti-government protests against President Aleksandar Vučić. The protests first erupted after the Novi Sad tragedy.
Canopy of one of the largest railway stations that is placed in Novi Sad has collapsed, killing at that time 15 people. The renovation of this station was financed by the government with huge amount of money, millions of euros, and it has been seen as a corrupt event.
On Friday, it was confirmed that the death toll climbed to 16, with a 19-year-old man pronounced deceased. A week before the tragic news, Serbia witnessed the biggest demonstration in its modern history.
Hundreds of thousands of people have gathered here from around the country, many people taking a long journey to the capital here to show their disagreement with the government.
I can say for sure that our fight will definitely continue until we see results.
This is despite the attempts to appease the protesters, including the stepping down of Prime Minister Miloš Vučević, who formally accepted his resignation this past Wednesday.
The current structure of the Serbian political system actually creates a situation in which the resignation of the current prime minister is just a fig leaf. Any other prime minister in the current political setting will be another Vučić's aide.
For his part, President Vučić attempted to discredit the protesters by claiming they were seeking a color revolution, parroting the language used by his Kremlin friends to discredit civic society in Russia and abroad.
We, in practical terms, identify two contradictory patterns. On one hand, mechanisms of silent repression that are being applied, and on the other hand, very shallow and inconsistent claims for various concessions to the protesters.
Serbs on the ground are pointing out that Vučić might be running out of options when it comes to keeping the protest movement at bay.
Suppression cannot go too much more, except for us becoming a complete police state with an iron fist. That would be really, really bad for our international community and the region.
Demonstrators now demand a new general election, which could go ahead as early as June. For TVP World, Zuzanna Jurek.
And that brings us to the end of this news bulletin, but we will be back on the hour. See you then. Goodbye.